Hello and welcome to our webinar on cultural consumer differences in Southeast Asia. And this is going to be presented to you today by Involve Asia, Commission Factory and AWIN. We're just waiting for people to arrive, so if you could just bear with us for a few seconds and we'll get started with the content shortly. Okie doke, I think we've pretty much got everybody, so we're going to get started. So just before we begin properly, for those of you that haven't attended one of our webinars, we'll just go through some of the usual housekeeping. There is a Q&A functionality. It looks like the logo at the bottom of the screen that you can see now. You can submit questions throughout the presentation and throughout the content, but we'll be addressing them at a specifically allocated slot at the end. You can also submit questions anonymously now, just in case you're a little bit shy, which is good. Any unanswered questions will be responded to after the webinar, and I'm sorry if we don't get to them at question time, or you'll be able to get in touch with Gerald or myself post-webinar as well to answer directly over email. This webinar is going to be recorded and we'll obviously make the content available to everybody that registered and or attended about 24-48 hours after we've finished the webinar. We're aiming for about 35 to 40 minutes of content in total, with a 5 to 10 minute slot for questions at the end, as I've just kind of alluded to. Just want to do a little check to make sure everybody can hear us properly. So if you could use raise hand functionality, it just lets me know that you can hear us clearly. That's brilliant. I think it looks like everybody in the room can hear us. And so that means I can move on to the interesting stuff. Introduce our Southeast Asian experts, our Southeast Asian market expert, Gerald. So Gerald has a wealth of experience and in digital, spanning performance, marketing and ad tech, and currently leads the growth and revenue teams in Involve Asia. For those of you that aren't familiar with Involve Asia, they're Southeast Asia's largest affiliate solutions provider. They manage affiliate programs for over 550 top e-commerce retail merchants across the region. They work with all the mainstream publishers and super affiliates, and their core industries are FMCG, travel, clothing and apparel, consumer electronics, finance, and home and living. And so that's all I'm going to say for now, and I will hand you over into the capable hands of Gerald as he kicks off our content today.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Sophie. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Commission Factory and AWIN for the opportunity to share this with you. And just to give you, everyone a better experience, we'll just turn off my video just in case it lags. All right, I'll promise to come back later. All right, let's begin. E-commerce is booming in most verticals in Southeast Asia. And unlike the rest of the world, SED has its own unique brand of marketing for one main reason. It is a melting pot of diverse cultures, religions, and more. To get a good understanding of the region, there are 4 parts to this webinar, where we will explore, first, how the SEA consumer looks like and what are the challenges of marketing to them. Second, the key trends that shape the growth in general, followed by third, the initiatives that are happening that make this market so unique, and lastly, quick takeaway on how to take some action. In just about 5 to 6 years, Southeast Asia has become one of the most exciting things for e-commerce. Competing here clearly requires a good understanding of the unique characteristics of this booming region. To begin, we take a look at the consumer persona first. First point, SEA is very diverse. It being multicultural alone makes it a very unique market. There are multiple languages and different cultures over here, and that presents a challenge in marketing to masses. Take me, for example. I speak 4 languages and 2 dialects, and at the same time, the infrastructure for digital commerce varies among countries, from connectivity to preference for payment methods. Point 2, the online consumer base grew by 50% last year and now totals 200 million individuals across ASEAN's top 6 economies. Compared to many other parts of the world, Southeast Asia has a relatively young population. 70% of the population here is under the age of 40. And point 3, Southeast Asia is one of the world's most mobile-centric regions, with countries like Singapore leading the way on smartphone penetration, and others like Indonesia and Thailand leapfrogging desktop PCs all together. The overwhelming majority of consumers in Southeast Asia use low-cost smartphones as their primary connection with the internet. And an increasing percentage of consumers use social media to purchase the goods or services. Most transactions are small. Lastly, with varying GDP per capita, not everything at high price points might enjoy mass success. Singapore currently leads with the highest GDP, while Vietnam is at its lowest. One good example of hitting all these persona notes is how Shopee, a leading marketplace, approaches challenges. Just to illustrate, optics matter. And to market to mass, Shopee chose to work with Blackpink, a K-pop all-girl band trending across the younger generation. They merged the endorsements with multiple campaigns and created special landing pages, some of which are specifically Korean-based products, and translated that campaign for use in multiple markets in SEA. This resulted in more than double the traffic than their usual campaigns and helped performance partners deliver more new users than before by increasing over 100 new affiliates recruited into the program. One of the angles for this strategy was really to bind multiple cultures together. And in this case, Shopee was actually pretty successful in pulling it off. Still, this is just an example in the strategy mix of how merchants market to consumers. As the region is so diverse, even payment preferences vary across countries. The options available to SE consumers are credit cards, internet banking, and cash on delivery. It's important to note that this component of localization happens depending on which markets merchants plan to launch in. For example, credit cards are very big in Singapore. Internet banking is the predominant choice in Malaysia. Cash on delivery is still prevalent in Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. A good example of this highly localized strategy is the story of Grab versus Uber, where Grab created more market fit by first catering payments with cash before moving into other forms of payments, giving them more competitive edge over Uber. This localized go-to-market strategy is at the same time very aligned with the demographics of Southeast Asia, where the landscape itself has the potential to reach out to 540 million consumers, presenting a market opportunity and customer base that's almost 2 times bigger than the US. But what's more interesting is that with strong economic growth over the last several years and a large population under the age of 40, a growing base of middle class is brewing in SEA, now with more money to spend. And speaking of disposable income and a growing economy, the SEA consumer is spending more than they did the year before. One thing you would take note over here is how different the average order values are across different countries, with Singapore leading the pack and Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam following behind. Now, this is incredibly useful data because it can help merchants dictate go-to-market strategies and adjust on price and promotions depending on the country that they launch in. Which brings us to some of the key strategy trends being practiced by merchants over here in their efforts to localize and adapt to cultural differences. Some listed in the following slides will seem somewhat familiar or standard practices around the world, but to aptly describe how merchants in this region adopt these strategies would be to say that they are simply just supercharging the frequency of price, promotions, and value add. And this is evident because the sale is always on in Southeast Asia. Our buying behavior is seen to be largely driven by price, promotions, and any form of value add back to the consumer. Deep discounting and subsidies, on the other hand, for products make it more compelling to shop online, and this is acted as a vehicle to move consumer spending away from retail, albeit in tiny percentages, but growing every year. Leading the narrative on this are marketplace leaders like Lazada, Tokopedia, Blibli, Shopee, and more, who continue to set the tone on aggressive promotions to generate most of the spending online.
It's interesting, isn't it? The difference between Southeast Asian consumer mentality and the Australian consumer mentality, in that the sale or like the discount is almost a badge of honor, whereas I think Australian consumers tend to want to hide the fact that they haven't paid as much for something and they want to pretend that they've paid more. So yeah, like a massive difference.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, and I think that's right. And as an example of that, right, on deep discounting, it's quite literally not seasonal. What we'll see is that there's a heavy and seemingly unplanned flash sales of the product and the category level from time to time. Some even do it on a store-wide level. Brands that are on both product marketplaces and who own their own sites have it ingrained in them to push out more campaigns to generate massive traffic for later parts of the year. And this is really to develop top of mind and a returning customer mindset, especially during major and massive e-commerce sales seasons. And SEA is pretty much filled with sales seasons. It's almost as if we find any reason to hold a sale. There are far more sales seasons in SEA compared to Australia, and these can be categorized into religious, SEA-specific, and worldwide sales events. Religious events include Muslim, Chinese, Indian, and Thai ethnicity-specific holidays. SEA events pertain to anything that's a double in a month, for example, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11. You get the drift. And lastly, SEA actually adopts worldwide sales events too, just because.
It literally is any excuse for a discount, but you really see
literally any excuse.
List out like that, the increased religious festivals and holidays that are observed, that obviously they're tied to sales, and that obviously has resulted in the frequency of the sales and the different sales seasons. But that tie to religion, I think, is quite key, isn't it?
Yes, it's quite key. And validation of these strategies can actually be seen in the hyper growth of orders year on year. What people would dub this as is its sales strategy on steroids. And these seasons truly do not disappoint e-commerce merchants. As you can see, order growth experienced just last year was as low as 10% to as high as 60%. The frequency of sales also resulted in category growth, suggesting that the room for growth is really only limited to how aggressive online retailers are. Traffic for these is also contributed with better and more affiliate activation in masses and the participation of mainstream, heavily trafficked websites in each of these countries. And with growth like this, internet native and direct-to-consumer companies are quick to adopt sales hyperactivity or constant user acquisition. With more retailers coming online each year, they're quickly leveraging price and promotions as a major pull factor to drive up orders. First, to do two things: to increase user acquisition and awareness of their online stores, and also to increase the volume of sales orders supported by vouchers, discounts, and other forms of value add.
Gerald, do you think marketplaces are a less committal way to dip your toe in to the water for non-native retailers? And if so, could there be a bit of an undercutting issue on price?
I think that marketplaces really act as a springboard to how traditional retailers can fully understand online commerce. A few reasons would be providing, the marketplaces would be able to provide the full customer experience, from providing payment facilities to logistics, and even managing returns, which traditional retailers will not be equipped or have access to that at the moment. And a lot of the pricing strategy is really subsidized by marketplaces instead, so as part of their effort to gain user traction. To simply put, with a better understanding of the landscape, retailers would be more equipped in setting up and launching their own brand.coms later. So just take this for example. Brands like Guardian, a large retail pharmacy chain in SEA, is making their mark on both sides, their official marketplace store as well as their own brand.com. And in terms of execution, they're taking advantage of subsidies borrowed by marketplaces to drive up their orders over there. But at the same time, they're also increasing the consumer base by offering higher commissions for new user acquisition on their own site for their direct program. Incidentally, their own brand.com actually offers more SKUs compared to the marketplaces they are listed at. And this has resulted in an increase in the pie, which seems to be a scalable solution for the retailer to increase more sales, but at the same time recruit more affiliates of the marketplace program into their own direct program. And this isn't unique to one or two retailers. As we can see, traffic across the board is showing a very healthy growth in top categories too. But while it's no surprise how always-on strategies drive up orders and traffic, Southeast Asia's e-commerce sector is still a moving target, which is why there is a lot of emphasis on the initiatives by merchants. And as we carry on, I will be covering topics such as partnerships, tactical arrangements, customer experience, sector initiatives, as well as long-term investment. And in this spirit of rapid development, Southeast Asia has been a launching point for numerous innovations that seem to be spurring the booming trend of social commerce. Just to illustrate, moving the focus from price to partnerships, merchants have seen differentiating by adding value-add components to drive up orders other than the use of discounts. We're seeing a decline of subsidizing price and offering general discounts to acquire more orders and users, and an increase of incentives back to consumers, more on-site engagement and promotions, which are later on explained in following slides, and used in more focused tactical partnerships. Another initiative that is being highly focused right now is improving the customer experience using data on price, frequency of orders, and customer convenience. While still scratching the surface of this, we're seeing, for example, Lazada improving delivery times for frequently bought items. Retailers like Zalora are targeting behavior and interest via CRM. And Watson's, a top retail pharmacy, offering offline collects their online customers using an omni-channel strategy. Moving on to long-term quality investments, merchants are also now seen heavily investing into developing user reviews and content. This is largely driven by two types of content arcs developed and optimized by affiliates. User reviews remain unbiased, but informative, and following the trends of the rest of the world, this type of content produces extremely great SEO for brands and higher than normal average order values. At the same time, there's user-generated content, which is fueled by social live streaming tools, and users are now spending more time on streams compared to long-form content to make less expensive buying decisions. Top category merchants like Lazada and Shopee, and a few, have even gone to the extent of providing their buyers tools to do this for them.
Wow, that's incredible, and also something that I don't think we see we don't see that in Australia just yet. So that's particularly impressive. Do you think that plays into authenticity playing a key role in decision making, like perhaps in China, where user-generated content kind of lends itself quite well to that?
I think that authenticity is a universal currency when it comes to acquiring trust and helping others validate their purchasing decisions. While this isn't a very SEA specific per se, I think the harder part in this is developing reviews and promoting UGC. It's really to discover the opportunities in the local scene, which could be particularly tough for a business unfamiliar with the local content creators. So as an example, this is a simple snapshot of how influential video channels managed by a local creator can be. We are at the same time seeing merchants aggressively forming new affiliate type partnerships with them. And this affiliate in particular produces video reviews on consumer electronics and works with advertisers on product sponsorships, as well as on a hybrid performance model with traffic incentives. The results are a cool average conversion rate of above 15%, not too shabby. And then there are technical initiatives that, instead of being general and available to partners en masse, they are carefully run in selected performance partners only. These types of partnerships are very fluid and have no set form or structure, but identify with the idea of providing value to affiliate partners that drive incrementality to programs. And to illustrate how they could look like, we move on to some of these examples. And these examples actually vary from network down to individual publishers. So for example, special pages, and this is from a real case from Involve's clients, where very often we find that a lot of our clients will actually create special and best-selling product pages within their sites for low to mid-value type of affiliates. And this content is actually created by the merchant to assist publishers to gain some traction in conversions. For exclusive deals, they are created with and for mainstream websites that command very large audiences. And this deal is exclusively just for them and their readers. And lastly, we see co-branded promos, which are a form of advertiser-publisher association and used largely in publishers with a sizable member database. Last but not least, we're seeing a lot of tech initiatives which align themselves well with the value add proposition to the customer. They're primarily undertaken to create stickiness, retention, and loyalty, and large merchants who have access to more tech resources are launching these new services in hopes that they become the difference maker to dominate their category of space. So as an example, Lazada launched an E-Plus, which gives back customer cashback and rebates. Shopee, on the other hand, has gamified buying with their own currency, the Shopee coin. So the more you shop, the more coin you gain, which can be exchanged for rewards. And then there are many others and who are and will be launching live streaming tools to turn their customers into content creators. Both these trends and initiatives have very positive effects on affiliates promoting to the Southeast Asian audience. And to explain that, with growing support and continuous investment from merchants, affiliates are generally finding it easy to get their traffic interested in a deal people cannot resist. But what's more interesting is the support is positively activating mainstream media companies to become affiliates. And this is largely due to them looking to unlock new revenue streams by incentivizing their audience and also to monetize existing commerce-related content. This has subsequently promoted category growth in traffic for categories like fashion, to home, electronics, and many, many more. And just to give you a good example of how mainstream's contribution to hypergrowth, we take a look at a company called Utusan. Utusan is a mainstream newspaper that was looking to monetize 10% of their 43 million page views a month audience. They produce news articles on a daily basis, as they would, but engagement was actually higher for lifestyle, food, fashion, and electronics content. So they partnered up with lifestyle brands to commit 1 million in traffic and unique reach, which resulted in monetizing more than 500 of their articles in commerce content, and that produced an incredibly healthy conversion rate. To add to that and to double down on the performance, they've also created a deal section for bargain hunters where merchants would be able to launch initiatives like exclusive coupons as well as co-branded promos for their audience. And another example of mainstream player is a content site called Says.com. They're regarded as Malaysia and Singapore's BuzzFeed of sorts, and they had and continue to produce commerce content without much or no monetization up until they were able to strike affiliate partnerships with multiple lifestyle brands. The challenge was that it was too laborious for their editors to change keywords into affiliate links. So Involve helped to activate them by having them use our keyword tool to automatically convert keywords on the fly, which ultimately resulted in the higher average order values for the programs that they promoted, with a significantly much lower cost of acquisition for their clients. I talked and touched about key trends and initiatives a few slides earlier, and I think it is good to note that many of these activities are really centered and targeted on the consumer being mobile first in Southeast Asia. A lot of merchant tactical initiatives are focused on mobile web and apps, more so than the desktop version of it. And the aggressive combination of these strategies and initiatives showcase an increase of affiliate traffic in these platforms. While the split for affiliate traffic still remains somewhat the same, we're starting to see more contribution to the smartphone area with more campaigns targeted to the mobile consumer.
That's a really different split, I think, isn't it, to what we see in Australia, where mobile, there's still a big leniency towards mobile in general from an affiliate point of view. But I think there's definitely more desktop sales, more of a percentage leans towards desktop. Why do you think there is such a strong desire for mobile and strong percentage of sales through mobile in Southeast Asia specifically?
All right, I think there are 2 points of this. Firstly, the accessibility of affordable smartphones has given rise to mobile internet consumption. And secondly, coupled with leapfrogging in some countries, the available infrastructure has helped to shift internet usage massively towards mobile. And furthermore, for Southeast Asian internet consumers, computers were never an accessory in everyone's home, so smartphones acted as an introduction to the online world. And to further add on to that, these trends and initiatives actually have positive trickling effects on affiliate EPCs, giving affiliates a lot of new opportunities to monetize their audience. The increase across the board showcases a combination of growing affiliate participation campaigns and the efficacy of SEA merchant strategies, attracting more buyers online. The biggest winners here are social affiliates, who seem to have found and carved out their niche, and social continues to rise because of the influencers. And over the course between 2017 to 2018, merchants have already managed to find hybrid models to work and activate them at scale. And while social may be seen on the rise, it is truly content that's starting to gain a lot of attention. And just to illustrate, this is an example of a highly localized pop culture site that up until recently monetized via programmatic ads only. This one here in particular leverages its dual reach on site and on social for conversion revenue. And that's very interesting because the results over here are generally 4 times in earned media value and above 1.5% in conversion rate from mobile traffic. Today, sites like these come in the hundreds and they drive similar, if not more value than others. And it can be seen in the increasing average order values that the channel produces. Content affiliates are typically driving a higher basket size compared to other channels, overtaking most super affiliates in incrementality. And while there is still a gain in most channel types, the customers that content seems to drive have more than just some spare change to spend. So there's been a lot to take in over the past several slides. So I'd like to end with a look at some key actionable takeaways from this session. Firstly, before we begin, one important thing to note that may be beyond the control of merchants within and outside of SEA are regulatory laws that are being discussed. The potential impact of this could dictate pricing and promotions in different SEA countries and how an advertiser develops their go-to-market strategy. It is prudent to get feedback from your affiliate managers on regulations that include e-commerce tax to imported goods and how GST will affect buying choices. The good news, however, at current, we have yet to see any of these regulations impairing merchants from entering or looking for partners to promote their brands. Finally, to cap off the webinar, here are a few key takeaways and changes advertisers can take. So first, how the price of products influences buying decisions and knowing which markets to launch in first according to varying average basket sizes is important. Second, approach hybrid performance models when activating affiliates with an audience new to your brand. Next, provide, if you are able, all payment methods that are popular in SEA. If you don't have all, start with the countries that favor your offerings instead. And lastly, develop an SEA sales calendar that aligns with the seasons here to promote order growth and support your affiliate business. In more general takeaways, continue as you would in markets outside of SEA to invest in developing user reviews for long-term gain, and speak with your affiliate managers to discover local creators and opportunities as their voice and value can take you very far. Thank you very much for your time. We'll answer any questions you have right after this.
Thank you so much, Gerald, for such detailed insight. I think we could definitely have gone on for a lot longer and talked about a few of those points at a bit more length, but we are at the end of our scheduled content. And as promised, we're going to go into some questions now. The first question we're going to ask Gerald is, will I, as we kind of touched on marketplaces a little bit earlier, and somebody's asked, will I cannibalize my brand's sales if I list on a marketplace as well?
I think, it really depends on a few things. All right. So number one is just how is the strategy, the editorial strategy for your own brand.coms are. We've not seen something like that happen so far with a lot of the brand.coms that are on board as well as on the marketplaces. So for now, I would say that it's pretty safe to do so. And I think it will also give a lot of retailers who are trying to enter into the market and listing it on marketplaces a taste of the SEA consumers' appetite towards your brand. Earlier I mentioned that a lot of retailers who are really traditional, coming online and with really big brands, really use marketplaces as springboards to test the waters and to see just what sort of value the online channel can bring, and later on kind of provide a better strategy spending brands.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think just making use of the marketplace's power, logistics, as you say, in the setup, which potentially other brands may not be comfortable with themselves. So no, it makes total sense. So question number 2, do we need to set up a local bank to be paid in Southeast Asia? And what is the main way Australian affiliates are paid, please?
Do we need to set up a local bank to be paid in SEA? And what is the way? Okay, so this is an affiliate question, or sorry, so this is just like direct. No, you don't have to set up a local bank. I think Involve actually works with a lot of affiliates from all around the world. There really isn't any issue in terms of transferring money across. So local banks, not really necessary.
Yeah. I think it's just important to check fees and that sort of thing before any international wire transfers. And
for sure. I think this is really how banks they'll add on charges for this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen when transferring money over to affiliates that are from overseas, their banks tend to have a little bit of processing fee charges.
Yeah. No, completely. We see the same thing. What's the rationale behind sale? And I had kind of an add-on to this as well. Do Southeast Asian consumers not get kind of sale fatigue as other markets might?
I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
Sure. So one of the questions that's come in is, what's the rationale behind the always on sale? But I kind of wanted to just extend that and ask if consumers in Southeast Asia get sale fatigue the way that potentially they do in other markets, just because obviously the frequency of sale is quite a bit higher.
I think it's that's a good question. I don't really think that there's a really good explanation for why there's always a sale. But
not the answer, surely.
I mean, obviously, number one, it's obviously to drive up as many orders as you can, and I think the real point of why there's a lot of sales is really to look at the multiple cultures as well as the demographics of the population, right? So there is a growing middle class, and there's a lot of people are getting more money to spend, and they have more disposable income.
Yeah.
And in order to encourage a lot of that behavior, it's not really online. It's not really online commerce's decision to begin with. It really starts way back before, traditionally on retail. Even before online commerce, we do see that just about everywhere goes on sale, and it may be for a product, it may be for a certain category, or it could even be a store-wide. But generally speaking, the seasons that I mentioned tend to exist online as well. And what's more interesting is that offline retail is right now copying all the online commerce events in terms of the events. So if you come to Southeast Asia during any of these seasons, right? And if you're walking in a mall, you'll see there's an 8.8 sale, there's a 9.9 sale, there's a single day sale. We're really just trying to compete and trying to take back that share of the pie back from online as well. So it's about it.
And so one more question: which country in Southeast Asia, where do you see the most cross-border purchases, would you say, between Southeast Asian countries?
I would say probably Singapore is the highest, simply because they've got really good spending power. They generally tend to work better with brands that are outside of SEA, and simply because also the currency is much stronger over there. If we're talking about domestic, then most of the marketplaces that are local tend to keep a lot of that spending within domestic, right? Okay, but the types of brands, for example, right, would be the ones that encourage a lot of cross-border would be more towards fashion, not so much on electronics, not so much on services and whatnot. It's really more on fashion. And, we do see that quite a fair bit in Singapore as well.
Okay, that's interesting actually that you think it differs per vertical as well. That's all the questions for now, but I can't thank you enough, Gerald, again, just for all your insights and for putting that content together and sharing that with us today. I think just the cultural nuances for Southeast Asia are fascinating and pretty extensive, and will absolutely affect how you put together and execute your affiliate strategy. So hopefully the content today was interesting and useful for people. And so I just wanted to thank everybody who registered and also attended today. just want to point out that Involve Commission Factory and AWIN will also be attending Affiliate Summit APAC on October the 1st and 2nd in Singapore. So we all have stands, and so if you can make that, I believe tickets are free for advertisers and publishers, so I do recommend investigating that and attending if you can. We would see you there and would love to see you there. As always, we'll follow up shortly with the content for everybody. And thank you again for everybody that registered and attended. And I hope that you all have a great rest of day, morning, evening, kind of wherever you guys are. So thank you.
Thank you very much. See you. Bye.